Welcome back to Lovin Dubai show. More people have climbed Mount Everest or travelled into space than have rowed unsupported across the Atlantic Ocean. And today's guest will soon embark on that exact journey for a brilliant cause. Here to tell us all about it, we're joined by Toby Gregory from the Arabian Ocean Rowing Team. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. Much appreciated.
Not at all. Fit us into your busy schedule.
Okay, so rowing a boat around the world. So what's your favorite nursery rhyme?
Our favourite nursery rhyme? It's got to be row, row, row a boat, hasn't it? I don't know the words to it, so I can't sing it for you, but that's a great starting point.
So predictable, Toby.
Hey, there's a whole range in there. You just asked for one. You didn't ask for many.
Would you go through, when you're going through, we're going to get into all of the training and everything that's going into this, but do you have like a playlist? Do you sing as you go? What gets you through every single training
Look,
day?
I think if you've ever heard my voice singing, you wouldn't want that to be an option. But yeah, look, we have a playlist we put together, and closer to the row, we're going to be putting that out to the public. Because obviously, if we know what's coming, you know, we kind of anticipate it, we get ready for it, and if it suddenly skips or isn't there, it's a bit of disappointment. So really, we're going to put it out there to the public to say, okay, what podcast should we be listening to? What music should we be listening to? And develop independent playlists from there. Because we've got 50 days, and we row all day and all night. So we've got an awful lot of time on our hands.
Yikes.
Can you just not even briefly, tell people exactly what's going on and exactly what you're doing? Because I don't know if people really understand the magnitude of what you're going to take on.
Yeah, look, we all take on challenges and we all do our own tasks. For us personally, it's one where I had a love of the water, you know, a passion for ultra endurance events, and a very rare chance to take on one of the last great adventures of this planet. And that is to row unassisted, unsupported, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean, from La Gomera, which is just off the coast of Africa, across to Antigua in the Caribbean, which will make a very nice stop. So it'll take us roughly 50 days, and during that time we row 2 hours on, 2 hours off for 24 hours a day. So we have roughly 120 minutes to sleep each time. But within that 120 minutes, what if something goes wrong with the boat? What if we need to repair something? We've got satellite calls, we're doing calls back to schools, we're working with the UN Environment Programme's Clean Seas campaign. And so there's an awful lot going on. So actually we'll just have a list and we'll say, okay, this is what we're going to do. Obviously the most of it involves rowing, but the rest of it involves kind of connecting with the community and connecting with groups of people worldwide.
I have so many questions, but I'll start with, do you not get scared of the waters? Because it's a scary place out there, not a scary moment.
They're talking about 40 feet high waves potentially.
Yeah.
Across the Atlantic.
Sharks?
There are lots of things in life that scares everyone, right? And actually, I think it's the thought of it that's more scary than the reality quite often. You know,
Have
it's
you
the
seen
same.
Titanic?
Well, hopefully, I'm trying to put a brave face on
Have
this.
you seen the Titanic?
I haven't watched it recently. Perhaps that should be on our playlist. You can add those songs and the movie too. We'll have time for it. But yeah, the reality is that when we're in the middle of the Atlantic, we'll be able to drop a stone over the side and it will take an hour and a half to reach the bottom. So we know it's quite deep. But the reality is we're going to be sitting there. We're well trained. We're well prepared. We've got a very good group. It's myself, two friends, James and Ray. So between us, you know, we're just excited and can't wait to get going, really.
Can you, love the enthusiasm, can you explain what does unassisted and unsupported mean?
Yeah, basically it means that as soon as we set off from La Gomera, there will be other boats trying to go at the same time. But once we set off, we are completely on our own. So we carry all our own food, we carry all our own supplies, we carry medical kits. We basically carry everything we need to try and get to the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. So if we need assistance, if we need help, then that's it, it's done. Now, the likelihood of us getting help in the middle of the ocean is going to be challenging. We probably have to make sure we're okay for about 48 hours, but there are container ships that pass by and they could provide assistance should we need to leave the boat for whatever reason. But essentially, it just means that we are completely self-sufficient for that time. So we've done medical training, we're doing physical training all the time, we're doing mental prep. There's a whole range of things, even logistics. So yeah, that's what it means. And actually, when we get to the other side, which we will, and we have to believe we will, we'll be the first ever UAE flag boat to have completed that crossing.
Huge.
It is huge, and there are lots of things and hurdles to pass between now and then. But we're working hard, we're working diligently. Each day starts at 5 a.m. for us. It finishes roughly at midnight, and then we press repeat the next day, and it just keeps going. But you just got to keep going at these things.
Damn. So it's not your first time out in the sea. What has the sea taught you?
The sea's taught me that every day is a different day. So, you know, I like to plan, I'm a details person. So when looking at the kind of weather conditions we're going to expect, if you look at the last 10 years and the weather patterns, no year has been the same. So actually the sea has taught us that we just need to be prepared for anything. But again, this is where we widen the net and we have huge amounts of support. You know, Lovin Dubai from the very beginning of, you know, kind of being there, they've been backing us, have been saying, you know, go for it, go for it. You know, Richard in particular is all the time, you know, do this, do that. I call him up, help. And, you know, so, you know, I think we're at the point with this campaign actually where it's no longer just about us. There are so many other people. And frankly, if it was just us, we'd have probably quit a long time ago. But because we've just had so much support, so much help from other individuals and from companies from all sorts saying, go for it, look, we can do this, we can do that. It's just kept us going.
You mentioned logistics, and I just think you're unsupported for 50 days. So is there a massive fridge freezer unit in this boat? By the way, what's the size of the boat? How do you sleep? What's your sleeping conditions? Is there a fridge freezer? Is there a cooker? How do you hold the water?
Yeah, so, okay, so the boat we had built especially for this crossing, it was made for us, and it's roughly the length of 1.5 cars. So it's
small.
It's rather small, and it's roughly the width of a desk. So again, quite narrow. But it's been built specifically for this task. So each end is self-contained, it's watertight, and there should be an emergency, we can go into the pods at the end. But the reality is that we're either out on deck rowing and trying to sleep, it's tiny, but we'll be so tired that we'll just fall asleep naturally.
I have this like inner sense of cold within me just hearing it.
The first 5 days will be very cold, you know, particularly because we live in the UAE and it's warm climate and we enjoy the beautiful weather here. So for us, the first 5 days are going to be very difficult. We'll be adjusting to the new rotations. We're missing family, friends. We'll be into the, you know, the guts of it in some ways. But then after that, hopefully it gets more enjoyable.
Have you ever been tipped over?
We haven't yet, but we expect to capsize 3 times. The boat's self-rights, and we've got processes and procedures in place should that happen.
Do you practice that?
Yeah, so the boat's going to go next week. So this week's quite crazy for us, quite busy. But yeah, then we start revising our drills. So we've been through sea survival, we've been through emergency procedures, all those sorts of elements. But once the boat goes and there's a bit of clear water for us, then we go back over all those things that we've learnt. You know, okay, so the boat's sinking, what do we do? Who's doing what? What action points are there? Well, there's an emergency on board. What's going to take place? Who's going to do what? A boat's coming towards us. There could be an impact. What are we going to do? When and why? So all these things you rehearse, you distill them down to a very simple list of procedures, typically 3 or 4 action points. You revise them, you learn them off by heart. And so if something does happen, you don't need to think, you just do.
Feels like, you know, army drilling it into you. You mentioned there's a lot of support, but even with a lot of support, what's the why? Like, what gets you guys doing the 5 a.m. to 12, like these massive days every day? Like, what's actually getting you out of bed to do it every morning?
I think it is that support. You know, this started as a dream many years ago. I bumped into somebody with an ocean rowing boat. I thought it was a fancy kayak. Turned out not to be in this thing. I didn't even know about ocean rowing. And then from there, they gave me a book. I read the book, and it developed into this kind of mythical dream. I never ever thought I'd be in a position where I'd be doing it. But then as we started and we kind of connected with the UN Environment Programme and their Clean Seas campaign and talking about plastics in the ocean and you know, the destruction of the oceans globally, it just became much more than a dream. It became kind of our sole mission to try and help raise awareness, help focus on that. But outside of that, also we've got all these students, all these kids. We take the boat to the schools. We've had over 20,000 people come through our Be Part of It program. And as a consequence, we're telling them, you know, with a bit of consistency, with a bit of focus, and just make you a bit of time, you can do anything you want. So if we don't complete this, what do we say to them? Oh, you can't complete it. Everything we told you was wrong. So it's really 2 missions now. One's all about single-use plastics and plastic pollution in the ocean, particularly. 30% of rubbish on our land ends up in the sea, and they're vital to us. You know, the oceans produce 50% of the oxygen we breathe. It takes a lot of carbon dioxide. We use it for logistics. And so that's, you know, they're important. Then on the other side, it's about, you know, just encouraging people globally that you can really do anything you want to do. You just have to put your mind to it, and you have to carve out a tiny bit of time. You know, we're all so busy. You know, we all come to work, we start early, we don't finish late, then we want to eat, then we want to go to bed, and then we want to watch Netflix. And it's actually one of those situations where actually if you put a bit of time into something, you know, you can take on the most unbelievable tasks. We started from 0.
So I was watching Seaspiracy. Have you seen Netflix?
Yes.
And the man who was just talking about it and like narrating the whole thing, he was saying he spent so much time out in the sea at one point that he developed a very fond relationship with sea creatures. Is that something that you would say worked for you as well?
No, I think from our perspective, we have no engine, we have no motor, so the likelihood of whales, the likelihood of killer whales and sharks coming up to the boat is extremely high. We know they will. And I can't wait for that. You know, kind of, when was the last time you saw a shark? You know, when was the last time you saw a whale?
Yeah,
so I think those elements, you know, again, on the processes and procedures, we're actually nominating who can jump in when, and what does that look like? Because again, the water will be going quite fast past us because of localized currents. So you're always having to be tied on. So when you go into the water, if you go into the water, you have to be strapped on. But how amazing. When was the last time we ever got to swim with whales? So yeah, so from a wildlife perspective, we'll see a lot. But then again, coming back to that plastics, we're going to see a lot of them, but we're going to be going through huge areas where it's just rubbish and garbage. Wow. And it's just, and we've been advised not to kind of, you know, start to remove stuff, actually just catalogue it, log it, try and take some samples, and then continue on our way. And actually, as part of that, we're going to be taking science experiments designed by students. So kids around the world, we've got them to design science experiments we'll take on the boat, to record the single-use plastics, to take temperature of the water, to take samples of water and all sorts of other things. So actually then we give it back to them and they'll be studying all of this. So that, you know, it's kind of no longer just about us.
Very quickly before you leave us, you talk about the process and procedures for things that can happen, but what about, like, you're deep into the Atlantic Ocean and you've just kind of described, like, you know, it's going to be, it'll be solitude.
Yes.
For, I don't even know, I'm sure you know how, like, you'll be the only living people for a very, very far moment. How do you prepare mentally for that?
So again, we've done a range of mental assessments. We'll continue to do that. So once the boat goes, those will actually increase. And more as a 3 to try and become more in tune with each other. But it's one where all of us have kind of done ultra endurance events in the past, and I think it's that mental solitude that gives you some of the peace. You know, when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, you've got no Wi-Fi because you can switch it off.
I was going to ask if you would have Wi-Fi.
Yeah. We do have iPads and we've got all the, you know, sat phones and everything like that. But really, it's about just keeping very focused. You know, because if you drift off too far and a wave hits us, what takes place then? You know, if you leave a door open, if you leave something out, it's going to get washed overboard. So you always have to remain kind of switched on, but at the same time, just imagine the peace, the solitude, you know, this kind of open ocean and just you. Something that so few people on this planet have ever experienced, to the point where more people have climbed Everest or been into space than have ever rode an ocean. Which
is just phenomenal.
Literally. But one question that our audience has been dying to ask you, we've gotten hundreds of DMs. Can you verify if mermaids exist?
Look, when we're taking these science experiments to the kids, they dream better than us, right? So I'm sure within that there'll be a mermaid kit, and if there is, I'll certainly let you know.
Okay, thank you. Not me, it's my
that wasn't for Simran.
Okay, fine. We'll report back. We will be sending footage. We have got Wi-Fi.
Simran is like sitting on a rock somewhere being like, this could be me.
Why not?
You have Wi-Fi, so you'll be watching the Lovin Dubai show from your boat every single morning.
Yeah, we need to just work on what time zone we're on so we make sure we don't miss it. But yeah, Lovin Dubai is going to be all over the boat.
And we will send you a playlist, which we think will work for you.
I would love that. Okay, so we've got 50 days. We will dedicate one day to be Lovin Dubai Day on the boat.
Yes.
And that's playlists, including music and audio books. Be nice to us, because halfway through Rome we can't change.
And we have an amazing recording studio, so she can just sing the coordinates to you.
And maybe if you play that out loud, it can attract the mermaids. So it'll work both ways.
We'll try. We'll give it a go, I promise.
So that's how you're going to follow us very quickly. Can people follow your journey as you go? Is it going to be live streamed potentially, or how can people keep up with you guys?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Arabian Ocean Rowing Team is the handle for all of them. Please do give us a follow and do support our journey.
Awesome. Well, what a journey it is to fly the flag for the UAE across the Atlantic unsupported. That is Toby Gregory of the Arabian Ocean Rowing Team. And that is it for us on the Lovin Dubai show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Toby.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Toby. Bye.
Bye-bye.